Mama Ozokwo lived at the edge of the city, hardly spotted out even by her own neighbors like precious gemstone hidden away in a private collection. Except there was actually nothing special about this woman, rather mystical. Her eyes, like lanterns in the night, glowed with an otherworldly light. Her face, a map of wrinkles and woe, told stories of secrets and miseries untold. Her hair, a wild tangle of grey and white, seemed to weave and twist like living vines in flight. Her skin, a canvas of earth and decay, hung loose and pale like a ghostly array. She had a voice of a rusty gate that creaked and groaned, sent shivers down the spine like a mournful moan. Her presence was a dark and foreboding cloud, casting a shadow of fear that made hearts cower and bow. Those gleaming eyes of hers was a malevolent spark, as if she stared and muttered in a witch's dark embark. Her bony fingers like twigs grasped and clutched as if she conjured and whispered in a language that hushed. This eerie old woman was a crone of dark renown, inspired by fear and dread. Wherever she made her crown, her presence was a warning, a sign of doom and fate, a reminder to beware of the darkness that she would create. Her back, a twisted arc of age and spite, bent like a crescent moon in a night with her spine gnarled like a knotted tree. It curved and twisted like a witch spell to be. Her weak shoulders hunched and stooped like a bed. Her very presence was a reminder of the weight of years. A bending, twisting, turning in flight seemed to bear the weight of centuries. Her wrinkled neck, as though twisted, supported a head that seemed to lean and tremble like a dying ember. Her entire form was a testament to time and toil. It was said she was a widow. Others said she never married at all. But the truth is, she was indeed a widow for at least every man she married in the past. 5 times over, 5 husbands, 5 funerals, and 5 graveyards to visit. Her back had tilted weighed down by grief and pain. She was like a life that has been and gone, nothing close to her dreams. It was a replica of her nightmares that in the long run didn't feel scary to her anymore. Mama Ozokwo's family wasn't any different with the death trend. It was like her family lineage sprung up from a curse. She was the only girl of her 9 brothers, all now laid in eternal rest, with each dead a misery that made men fold their hands on their chest, and mother whispered in meeting groups of what particular thing chopped off this family. Now, it is clear she could never have a man in her life, not a husband, not even a brother. Her house was the lone one out of the regular houses in Owerri. A weathered plank house where the wind whistled through the cracks like a mournful sigh, seemed to lean as though peeping on everything around it. The house carried ghostly walls creaking with crickets both day and night. Its roof was a patchwork of rusted tin in it like skeletal fingers. No street lights around. It was like NEPA never knew that particular spot the house stood ever existed. One so ugly that screamed beware in the mind. No one ever did visit Mama Ozokwo, but of course victims of circumstances are always part and parcel of stories like this. It was around mid-May. That day the sun was extraordinarily hot. Obinna lost his little girl child. The neighboring hood said she was last spotted around the old Erie house. Little Adanna and her friends were playing dodging when the ball was mistakenly shot into the house. The door silently tilted, so small you could see the ball peeping on its old, creaky, groaned and weathered surface, bearing the scars of countless footsteps and seasons. Adanna, though scared to go in because the house has never beheld a good story to come around, something felt inviting. The girls Seeing their ball just standing there looking harmless, saw a pledge to just quickly go in and give a grip and back out again. But as easy as it seemed, that was not the case. As Adanna walked across the door line into the house, every step seemed to echo through the empty walls as if the house itself was watching and waiting. Shadows danced upon the walls like dark specters. The air inside was sucked from space as cobwebs clung to shelves and wall frames. Candles that never seemed to burn out, making the room feel like a living thing with its flames. Even the furniture themselves seemed to blur and twist. It was obvious to Adanna at this time that the house itself was a breathing entity for a malevolent presence. The old woman's figure was shrouded in an impenetrable darkness, as if the shadows themselves had coalesced into the living. Her presence seemed to draw the light out of the air, leaving only an oppressive, crushing gloom. Seated on the old wooden chair, she seemed to blend seamlessly into the darkness, her form indistinguishable from the shadows that surrounded her. The chair, worn and weathered, cracked and groaned as it slowly swung back and forth, as if pushed by an unseen hand. The woman quietly stayed silent in the dark, fixing Adanna with a cold, calculating stare. As the chair continued its slow, ominous swing, the old woman's presence seemed to grow, filling the room with an unspeakable horror. The air was heavy with the stench of decay and corruption, and Adanna could feel the weight of the old woman's gaze upon her, crushing her beneath its unyielding, malevolent pressure. By this time, the door was banged shut. Adanna's hair stood for an impeccable flight, her pulses swelling up into big goosebumps. You could singularly count every skin hair on her. Every picture frame on the wall carried a lost kid of many years. It dawned on her she was never going out again. Her friends outside were all terrified for her, especially seeing the door shut. It was already 10 minutes since she entered, and as they all stood as though paused at the very apex of a horror movie, wondering what happens next, they heard a loud shout from the inside. It was Adanna's. A blood-curdling scream tore through the air, a primal wail of terror that seemed to shatter the very fabric of sanity. The cry was a raw, anguished expression of mortal fear, a desperate plea for mercy as the jaws of doom closed in. It was a sound that seemed to come from the very depths of the soul, a scream that was both a warning and a farewell. The sound waved seemed to vibrate with a physical presence, like a palpable force that shocked the air and sent shivers down the spine. Then, silence. All that was left were flapping birds flying off the rooftop, and then the slow murmuring of an old voice with doors opening and closing as though someone walked around. Adanna was never seen again. 1 year later, this time around were a group of boys of about 10 playing football a little distant from the compound, and then again the ball sped off, rolling into the darling arms of the eerie house. It was like a magnet to items and kids' toys to invite anyone daring enough. This time around, it was Emeka. Same pattern, same outcome. Emeka too was never seen again. Rumors held that the old eerie house swallowed one person a year around mid-December, never to be seen again. Some said no one was inside, that it was just ghosts and spirits swallowing up the strangers who came around, but only the victims who never had a chance to make it alive knew better. James and Rose shared a beautiful love story. A parent of 3, Aaron, Jake, and Isabel. This was no regular Nigerian family. They were rich British blacks who lived on Nigeria's Banana Island. Every year, they would travel from city to city eating junk food while playing loud music as they journeyed. It was called the family recipe. A time to bond and laugh, a time to visit new places and try new things. Owerri was one of the cities in the family's checklist to visit. That year, like every other road trip the family made, it started smoothly. The wheels hummed along the smooth asphalt, a soothing melody that accompanied the gentle rocking of the vehicle as it glided effortlessly down the highway. The sun cast a warm glow over the landscape, illuminating the rolling hills and verdant forests that stretched out as far as the eyes could see. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees, creating a soft susurrus that blended harmoniously with the spur of the engine. The road unwound like a ribbon, a seamless stretch of blacktop that seemed to stretch on forever, inviting to explore the unknown horizon that lay beyond. As the family cruised along, the world seemed to slow down and the stresses of everyday life melted away, replaced by a sense of freedom and adventure that came with hitting the open road. It was nightfall by the time they entered Owerri. The car's momentum was abruptly halted, as if an invisible hand had reached out and slammed on the brakes. The vehicle's tires screeched in protest, the rubbers burning against the pavement as the car's forward motion was suddenly and violently arrested. The air was filled with the acrid smell of burning rubber and the sound of crunching metal, as if the car had been physically slammed into a brick wall. The impact was jarring, throwing the kids forward against their seatbelts as the car's engine sputtered and died. The sudden stop was like a physical blow, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. The full tank of gas dried down like it evaporated. This was unusual, but James, the man of the family, didn't overthink it. "We need to refill the tank, babe," he said to his wife Rose, except that the nearest gas station stood before them in an endless expanse, its distance not just measured in miles but in the exhaustion it promised to extract from their bodies if they took that long walk to push. Worse, there was no hotel around to book for the night. Every house was only shown in a faraway place as crimson of light in the distance, except for one that stood not more than 20 steps from them, Mama Ozokwo's. The family was exhausted and needed a place to rest, and so decided to visit the old house. As they walked towards the house, a man passing by in his car that seemed to know the history of that house shouted for their attention, but he was at top speed, like his leg was glued to the accelerator. James didn't quite pick up the man's words, but it certainly was a warning. In fact, what he didn't know is that while driving across the old eerie house, never slow down. "Well, it's just a house," he said. As they entered, flickering their torchlights around, it was only a big empty space with an old couch on the slacking floor. James fixed the couch for the kids and dusted the floor for his wife and him, then shut the door behind them. And at that point, doom began. First, the night never seemed to end. The old wooden box television suddenly flashed on. At first, they thought it was just some beautiful adventure, so they watched the short movies the TV showed, staying entertained and lost track of time for a moment. Hours passed by, tick-tock to another, and it was 12 noon already. James took a look at his watch and it read 12 noon. But it did not seem like daylight inside. He walked to the window and spread open the blinds to look outside, but still everywhere was dark. The room was a void, a cavernous space that seemed to swallow all light. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and stagnation, as if time itself had forgotten this place. Even the torchlights now soaked by the room's perpetual doom. Shadows danced across the walls like energetic spirits. The darkness seemed to have a physical presence, a palpable weight that pressed down upon all who entered, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. It was as if the room had been locked away from the world, sealed off from the warmth and the light of the sun, left to stew in its own darkness, forever trapped in a perpetual dismay night. By this time, it was obvious to the family. We shouldn't have entered. We should have never have entered this house, Rose said. Her voice was barely audible, a faint whisper that trembled with fear and despair. Her words themselves were indistinguishable, but her tone was unmistakable. It carried a plea for rescue, but they were never leaving out of there ever again. 5 days later, the neighborhood noticed the abandoned car parked just nearby Mama Ozokwo's house and knew that once again the house had done evil to another victim. They were not going to let this one slide. Anger raging in the hearts of every family member who lost a loved one to the house, and so they decided to burn it down. "Let's burn it down!" one of the men in the angry crowd roared. "Every man, go in and bring out kerosene, petrol, oil, anything at all to burn down this good forsaken house." All of the men retreated and brought out fuels and other fire-provocative substances ready to set the house ablaze. As they lit it up, a big flame swallowed the whole house, burning, but this was different. It burnt, but nothing seemed to truly burn. Not even the planks and roofs that were ever inviting of flames. The plank house stood eerily still, its wooden slats engulfed in flames that danced and flickered with a maddening intensity. Yet, in spite of the inferno that surrounded it, the house itself seemed to defy the very laws of nature, refusing to crumble. The flames licked at its walls, casting a hellish glow over the surrounding landscape, but the wood itself remained stubbornly intact, as if it had been soaked inside the ocean. The fire crackled and spat, sending sparks flying into the air, but the house stood firm, a surreal burning monolith that seemed to mark the very concept of destruction. After hours of burning, the flames finally died down. But there it was, looking tattered and weak like it has always been, Mama Ozokwo's plank house staring back at the shocked faces of the crowd. It was witchcraft in broad daylight, one that would never leave their minds and their hearts. At this point, the community knew there was nothing that could truly destroy the house, and so a big billboard was built just about 10 meters away from the house, written on it, "Do not visit. Beware of the old house. Run for your life." A firm warning that would at least keep many lives and visitors from the house till it reached its end, if ever the house itself had an end.
Please subscribe to watch more of our videos. Thank you.